welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military, veterans, and first responders transform lives from the prayer room to the boardroom. You know we're in the superhero battle room, but we're going to do a little bit different with our guest, Richard Kaufmann. We're going to give a quick bio on him and then actually introduce him. We're going to do this more of a conversation. So instead of the fade in and fade out, we're going to try to do this a little more organic. So if you're used to the banners, you're going to have to be okay. So Richard is a military man who has served his country and is now serving our communities by helping others having breakthroughs in life. And I know his book, his podcast, his community, and even me, when I met him in person, has given me breakthroughs on business. But he goes way beyond that. And we're going to bring him on the stage and we're going to get this party started. Hey, Richard, do I have you?
You've got me. You have my. How you doing, my brother?
Hey, man, I'm getting saluted. I'm only enlisted. This is so nice.
You deserve it. I mean, without you, I would not have my podcast. So without you, I wouldn't even be here today. So you deserve a salute.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll get to at least retire for my first and my last salute.
There you go.
All right. So let's get into the past a little bit before we go into the present. What inspired you to join the military?
Well, for me, I was 16 years old. I got thrown out of high school for hitting a teacher in the head with a desk.
Woo.
So it was either join the military or go to jail. I kind of did both when I was in. So it wasn't for the love of country. It wasn't for any other reason except I had no other place to go. So that I joined at 16 and I shipped the day I turned 17.
Wow. That must have been really, you said you threw a desk at a teacher. Like you literally threw a desk
At a teacher and hit her in the head and knocked her ass out.
Wow. Well, you must have been really.
I was not a good person back then.
Yeah, you must have benched a lot too to go through those desks because they're like the really old school desks, aren't they? Those old metal ones that had like the storage and everything.
Yeah, but I was a wild child back then, and I'm not that guy anymore. Now I'm just a big cuddly puppy guy now.
Yeah. Well, I'm small and I'm never going to cuddle, just so you know. I give hugs because if I love you, but it doesn't mean I like the hugs. I remember.
Hey, I did get a hug in Mick. I did get a hug from you and Mick.
Yeah, I do. Like, and another thing sometimes too, because not most people realize this, but I'm autistic. I'll tell people privately, but this is the first time I've shared publicly, like on here, that I realized a year ago I'm autistic, and I also gone through some trauma. So for me, hugs are not the thing, and I usually viscerally react. So if I'm doing that, I'm either loving the person and serving, or I'm really connected with the person. And I really connected with you through the text and the chat and all the times that we've done podcasts, and even when you were doing the audio, which you were teaching me, even though I was teaching people in the podcasting. Like I didn't even know about Anchor that existed. I didn't. Now it's Spotify. Yeah. We just had Travis on, and he was teaching me about more to doing this more comfortable interview style and conversation. So you guys have been kudos on that. But we're going to go further into that. So we're going to go from the 16-year-old that was throwing things to now you went into the military and went into, we'll talk about the branch and everything. It's like, how long were you actually in and when did you leave?
I was in from 86 to 88. I got thrown out for being a drug addict and an alcoholic. I got back in 89, and I was served until 2012 when I got hurt on duty and lost my vision, and I got medically discharged. So altogether, I did about 23 years between National Guard and regular Army time.
So you were able to get restored after getting thrown out in the same branch? Because most people I met, they usually don't go back to the same branch. Like a lot of our guys, it would come in like to the Air Force. They either left the branch or they got thrown out of the branch and they try to find one. Like, let's say you get thrown in the Air Force. Oh, the Marines will take me. They'll take anybody. Or like if you get thrown in the Navy, it's like, hey, I'll go into the Army. So did you actually go back to your same unit?
No, I went from active duty, and then I joined the Pennsylvania National Guard. But because they were the only unit that had tanks, so I wanted to still stay in tanks. So I joined the National Guard that had the tanks.
Wow, that sounds kind of similar to my story. I didn't get thrown out, but I did 12 years active, and it was because of the MOS, and I was not compliant with MOS. I couldn't meet the standards. And then I went into the reserve, and then they threw me into a maintenance job, which you can just see I'm not maintenance. If you're watching this video, if you're watching this audio, you're gonna think I'm a really big dude, but I'm like Tiny Tim, and they're putting me on vehicles. So that's really interesting. So from there, you were able to serve and then get medically retired. How was that? Was it an easy process? Was it a hard process? Was it trials?
It was a lot of trials, and I wrote about it in my first book, and we talked about it on your other shows. You know, after I got in, I went from being the worst soldier to becoming Soldier of the Year to becoming an NCO, and actually went to school like 3 times. Took reclassification 3 times just to get all my promotion points. I started maxing my PTs. So I did everything I could to become Sergeant Kaufmann. And then when you get hurt and they say, you can't see, you can't shoot, we don't need you, you're no longer Sergeant Kaufmann. Well, the day they medically retired me was Labor Day 2012. And the reason I almost took my life that day, I attempted suicide that day, was, well, if I'm not Sergeant Kaufmann, who am I? Who's Richard? You know, who am I? If I don't have that rank anymore, I don't know who I am, because I was all wrapped up in the military and having rank. Now I'm nobody. I'm half blind, PTSD, a traumatic brain injury. I can't even work. So now I'm half a man. So and a lot of people I've talked to on the show say that's one of the biggest issues is when a person leaves the military, they're no longer that rank. They're just another civilian when they get out, and it's hard to adjust when you're just another guy now or girl.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that the civilian world kind of destroys us about, is that they have identity crisis, and so do we in Aptitude Garden. You got told you're not a sergeant anymore, you're not a soldier anymore. Those "you are" statements are very positional statements, and they can be positional positive or positional negative. And that almost destroyed my marriage, was "you are" statements, and that can destroy your identity in the military. And especially when you start having, let's say, cognitive issues or health issues, and then you get decertified from, let's say, your rate or your MOS. So how did it initially, that identity crisis, was it fast? Was it one of those things that you just decided, like when I read your book, it felt fast, but was it like over time and it was just that constant beating and woeing, and that's when you decided to try to unalive yourself?
No, it was literally that same day that I tried to unalive myself. But because of what happened, how it transpired, I pulled over on the side of the road and I called my wife and I said, you know, I almost took my own life. I need help. If I don't get help, I'm going to eat my gun by the end of the weekend. And I couldn't get into the VA because it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
But Monday I got into the VA. And from that day forward is when I decided, hey, I can't be the only guy that's feeling this way. I can't be the only one. And then when I started reaching out to the people in the tribe, all my veteran friends, I'm not the only one. It's more than likely that people are suffering because their self-worth was in their rank or in their position or in their title. And that's when I really tripled down on the podcast, because I decided if I'm not the only one, well, then we need to get these stories told to try to get those suicide numbers down.
Yeah, it's amazing on how much it is an identity. And like, even for myself, I'm like, I've been so identity, and I'm showing this in the video, probably won't say this in the audio, but I literally have a tattoo of my rank, but I had to rechange the identity to like taking the stripes and putting my kids and my wife's name. And then I put scripture references on the other side. And instead of the star, I put the cross, because I was so bent on my rank until about like E5, E6. I'm like, the Lord, I was trying to redeem that thing. I'm like, I'm still passionate about the military and everything else, but how do I start redeeming this identity? Because you're right, you can easily, I'm at 163 days left. I'm a counter. That's how many days I have left in the military. So I will be retired 18 October. If I relish on that to a point that I don't go over and deal with it, I could do the same thing that you did in a different way in that particular regard. And sometimes I think we even do those unalive attempts based on how we are. You are hard and fast and challenge things, and you go really hard. Like once you got into podcasting, you went really hard and really fast, even with all your disabilities. For me, I'm more of a systematic guy. So I think I just would systematically unalive myself. I would just erode in that particular regard. So that's why I asked that question earlier, because I was like, it's just interesting. But I think that's a huge issue that I think we need to deal with in the military is we have to deal with our identity crisis. If we don't deal with our identity crisis, once it goes away and we get away from the proximity and the affinity of that group, all it takes is a couple of things to go haywire or wrong, or wherever we have thoughts in our mind, and we could be in that car, or we could be taking those pills, or we can be playing with the razors, or whatever way you decide to go over and do that. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think that we need to reinvent and reimagine our lives. Because I still walk around Walmart or wherever, and I still see dudes wearing BDUs from the 80s, from 90s. That's all you see. Their cars, it's all military stuff. It's like they haven't really reimagined their life. They haven't reinvented themselves. Like for me, if you look at my car, well, now my wife got some stickers, but if you'll never see me wearing a military BDU hat or anything like that, because I'm a veteran, but I'm not just a veteran. I'm an author, I'm a podcast host, I'm a speaker, I'm a father, I'm a husband. So I think in order to succeed in life, we kind of have to take both feet out of the whole veteran thing and step into something new.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the strongest things that I learned about myself, and this was when I was in Germany, and I had a guy mentor me. His name is Vern Salter. He's doing missionary work to this day. He helps actually missionary workers, like when they go through sabbaticals and everything else. And he made me go wrestle with Isaiah 43, 1-8. And what it does is it talks about like we're cherished, we're called, we have a people, he's given us a nation. He's not going to overload us. He's going to go over and be there through the fires and the floods and everything else. And that's a huge identity thing for me when I get caught up in the military identity, the veteran identity, even the husband father identity, because even before that I was his child. Those are identities that are going to go over and stick. And I think that is our major calling for our podcast, is that we want you to break through that identity crisis from the prayer room to the boardroom. So no matter what happens and whenever floods come and whatever fires come, that you can still go over and have joy. You can still have peace. You can still have patience. You can still have kindness in that particular regard. That's huge for us.
Yeah, and I agree. And when you realize that your father owns it all, and that you're part of the bloodline, that means you can borrow it all as long as you know you don't own it. Like if God will let me borrow the house I live in, he's going to let me borrow the beach house.
Mm-hmm.
If he lets me borrow the nice car that I have, he's going to let me borrow the pimped out Jeep. As long as I know that I don't own it and he owns it all. Because if your father knows you love him and appreciates everything you got, of course he's going to give you more. Mm-hmm. So that mindset of I have to be poor, I'm not enough, or there's not enough in this world. If you're a child of God, you're his child. He owns everything. So in turn, it's all open to you.
Yeah, it's $1 trillion traded a day. So even from the worldly perspective, he can give as much or as little that he wants to go over and to give of that. And we're just stewarding that resource. So let's get into more of the podcast pivot that you went over and did. So what made you pivot to what you were doing today? So you went from the transformation of like, okay, I'm not unaliving myself. I'm going to start becoming that NCO and then become really hard charge. And then the ailments come, the medical discharge comes in. And now you're a podcaster that has what, 3 million, 3.5 million plus downloads. You have all these types of things. You're a published author now. You're doing speaking, you're doing coaching. What made you pivot to that? Was it that quick in your mindset when you got the help? You were just like, hey, I'm ready to go? Or was there a different part of the journey that maybe we're missing?
Well, what actually happened is after I lost my vision, I sat in a chair, literally sat in a chair, in a rocking chair for 18 months.
Wow.
I couldn't see any. I can only see about 20%. I couldn't drive. I couldn't take care of myself. My wife did everything to take care of me until I put out a post because I could still see a little bit in the tribe, and everybody started reaching back out to me. They're like, "Hey, you're the comeback coach. It's time for you to come back." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how to come back." And Tammy Moses says, "You have an iPhone, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You have," well, it was Anchor back then.
Yeah.
"You have Anchor. All you got to do is hit the record button, right?" I was like, "Oh." So I started doing daily recordings and putting it out on social media, and then I started doing interviews. And the first interview I did was with a guy. He had no arms, no legs, but as we were talking, his wife is holding up the phone to his ear because he is sitting in Aspen in a jacuzzi because he just got done skiing with his family all day. So, and that thought process was like, wait a minute, I have both my arms, I got both my legs, I got 20% vision. So, what's my excuse? And that's when I started pushing down on the podcast, and eventually I was doing 6 episodes a day, 7 days a week on the podcast.
Yeah, I remember that. We were in the same different season. We didn't know each other then, but I was doing radio, and then I was paying $70 a week for radio. And then I went live on Facebook. I think this was like 16 or 17, and I was getting more views going live than going over and then doing the radio, and I'm paying $70 a week. It was a show called Back to Basics. And then at that point, I really buckled down and I did 6 unique lives a day, like one on each platform.
Yeah.
And that's how then I got into radio and everything else. So it's kind of like we both have that same heart. Like once we do something, we really hard charge at it. Because I remember like you were just interview after interview after interview after interview. So do you think?
And then every Monday I would have the Monday night comeback, and I would do a Facebook Live on Monday night, and that would get 300, 400, 500 views back in the day. So that's how this whole thing really started, was just Facebook Lives, and then doing a podcast, and then we just started getting more known and to where we're at now. And we're still growing, but I've kind of I've changed things. I just up leveled. So I've been doing a lot of pivoting as of the last 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, and we're starting to do that now. I'm thankful for Travis, the prior episode, that just doing the pivot of we're doing shoulder to shoulder. I feel this is more authentic and hopefully gets more reach and everything else. And then we're doing 100 posts a day challenge that Travis challenged us. So we're taking the top 36 shorts that are on YouTube. So the ones that get the most popularity by May 18th. And then those will then get uplifted in Instagram for a 7-day challenge. So each short that gets in the top 36 will get 20 times it will pump through. I guess the infinite scroll, I guess, is the winner in the new social media. You get into the shorts, but IG doesn't care what you post in there. They just want content. So you can technically feed that monster. And I guess there's an article to literally justify that some company did that for 30 days and they increased their followers almost by 100,000. And they got about 130, I'm misquoting the cash amount, but I think it was in the 6 figures of clients that they got within those 30 days.
Well, sometimes you have to pivot, and as the world of social media starts improving, now you got Opus Clip. You have things that are a lot easier for people to use. If you're not using these tools, then you're going to get left behind it if you're not using the tools, and they're not expensive anymore. It used to cost for so much money to get somebody to do videos for you, but for a nominal fee, you can start having your own videos clipped, and it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Like StreamYard here, you can get AI clips. You can go to captions. You can Opus Clips is about. I got a half deal, so if you get in early, you can get about 500 minutes for like $19 a month. It adds B-roll and everything else. If you are a podcaster and you're doing this, make sure you're watching what the B-roll is. Me and my wife were doing Christian content, and we do Christian content on War Hero to Superhero, but we had her on an episode, and it will tie whatever it thinks is content, and it started pulling in, let's just say, content that's typically not Christian. And that's what happened. My wife's like, she's like, that's not supposed to be on there. And I'm like, I didn't think the AI was going to do that. So you got to watch your AI when you're doing your B-roll and make sure that you're getting right. But I agree that Opus Clips is fantastic.
And ChatGPT 4.0, it's like $20 a month. Where can you get an assistant for $20 a month?
Yeah, that one I have not tried yet in that particular regard. I mean, we've done the Screw Your Writing, so that's how we write our books. So my wife gets into a flow. I haven't used it yet, but what would you recommend in that if you're going to use ChatGPT? What do you use it for in a day-to-day?
I do it more for research purposes, and I also help it do search for short tail keywords, long tail keywords, and mostly for research. Like if I want to write a paper, I can actually have it write out a paper. I can study it and learn it. So I actually use it for a lot more for research and learning different things, because I'm 56 years old and I'm still learning something new every day. So, if I want to write an article about something, I go through ChatGPT, because if I go through Google, I got to go through all the sponsored ads and all the paid ads. But if I go through ChatGPT, I'm just getting answers.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that's how you've been getting all those emails that are coming out, because I was kind of confused. You do right now a multitude of emails of different topics and everything else. Does that really help you with that?
Yeah, but a lot of it is the best way. If you want to be a great teacher, the best thing is take a class on something to learn, and then teach it to somebody else. Because then you got to study 3 times as hard. So I'll pick a subject I really don't know anything about. I'll take classes on it, and then I'll teach it.
That's really good in that particular regard. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I got an opportunity to teach about a couple of days ago. It really, even though I've taught it before, it kind of challenged me, and I added a new element into there, because personality styles are kind of like mirrors. We think we're throwing out the right image, but we really don't know what we're throwing out there until somebody reflects it back to us. And I actually used it as the beginning piece and then the end piece to tie it together. I never done that before. I never took a piece of content that I started with and brought it back at the end to actually piggy it back. That was like the first time. And I was fortunate and blessed that someone had a mirror at work, because I was scrambling like 15 minutes prior. I'm like, can I find a mirror? Can I find a mirror? And I'm like, I was going to use my phone, but that's not a real mirror. So I was fortunate able to find one.
Yeah. So if you want to teach, you want to learn something, teach it to somebody else. Like if I want to learn podcasting, I'm going to teach it to somebody else, because I need to know. And my clients, if they ask me a question, I need to know the answer.
Yeah, I definitely think so in that particular regard. And let's dive into that. Do you have your book available, actually, while we're on this subject of podcasting?
I don't have it. I don't have it down here. I have it in my office.
Okay. I'll see if I can try to pull it up on my phone real quick to show everybody. So,
in the book is like one of my friends said when he bought the book. He said, if you buy the book at breakfast time, you can have a podcast by dinner. And it's just there's no fluff, there's no BS. It's actually on sale right now. The ebook is on sale for $2 on Amazon. But and it's all clickable. All the links are clickable. So if you want to start a podcast, it costs you $2 to start a podcast. How else? And you're actually being taught by somebody that was taught by John Lee Dumas, the #1 entrepreneurial podcaster in the world. So you're getting taught almost everything that he taught me for $2. And then, of course, I have my own personal coaching. I have the autographed books and stuff like that. But if you're an ebook person, for $2, you can pick up the book and have a podcast by dinner. Same day.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It's kind of funny. I thought I had it and I can't find it on my phone. So we'll definitely go put that on the notes and everything else.
And I got to give a big shout out to you, and I got to give a big shout out to the company that helped me get my book out there. They've been such a help. And I'm so grateful that Ingram Spark, thank you so much. It's still doing well. I just looked at it today. It's still number 10 on best release.
Oh, wow.
Bestseller after 2 years. It came out May 4th of 2 years ago.
It's been that long since I helped you. It's been that long. Wow.
Yep. And it's number 10 today on bestseller still.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how helping people with getting their content and things out there, because we don't have to be limited. We don't have to be a scholar to get the information out there. We just take the wisdom that we can learn from ChatGPT and the internet and everything else, and then we learn it and craft it ourselves, and then we put our voice. And nowadays you can literally write yourself an outline, go over and speak it out. You can go on a Google Doc now and speak it out, or record it on your phone, and then you just literally, now you have a manuscript, and then you just clean it up either through Grammarly or an editor or any way you want to go over and do it and get it out there. And I think the only regret I have with doing that type of publishing is that I didn't realize I talk the same way I write. So I had to really learn to go over and slow it down. But if you get the right people, you get out there. And that's the beautiful thing. So I'm actually going to get my book rewritten. I have a friend that's going to go over and review it and then help me rewrite it, so we can get Leave No Marriage Behind actually more palatable to people, because it's very tactical and we're just trying to make it palatable. So,
and my first book, now it just came out on Audible. So now my first book is actually out on Audible, and Amazon did it for free. They did the Amazon book. They did the Audible book for free. It didn't cost me anything.
Did you do your own voice, or did you hire somebody?
I picked the guy's voice. It was an American voice, and they did it for me. I didn't even have to touch it. I didn't know it was going to be an Audible until I got the information that your book is now available for Audible for free.
Wow, that is really cool. Yeah. That is really cool.
And guys, I just want to mention this was we're talking just before. I just wrote an article on LinkedIn about how you need to have evergreen products. You need to have them, because when my father died 3 years ago, I was off the grid for about 6 weeks. And because I had evergreen products like books, courses, T-shirts, swag, I still was making money even though I wasn't working. So you guys need to have evergreen products, because the internet doesn't close. Where if you work for a business, it shuts down after 8 hours when you leave, but the internet never closes.
Yeah, I think that's totally key in that particular regard. So what would you recommend to somebody that is trying to get out there and to get their products past? I'm even asking this for myself. My wife gets more sales than me. We'll just call it point blank. Her books are blessed and anointed, and I know my books get 2 to 8 sales a month. How do you make it the point that people are wanting to buy and be evergreen, because there's tons of books that go out there all the time and they don't get sales. I'll just use mine as an example. I'm doing a rebrand of it. How do I make it palatable to sell so people are buying it while you're off or sleeping?
Because you need to make sure that it's something that is, first of all, you need to make sure that it's needed, that there's a market for it. And then you also have to make sure that it's properly promoted. You know, just because if a person has a book out on Amazon, that doesn't mean anything. If it's not being properly promoted, then you're not going to get a lot of sales if people don't know about it. So I think, like me and you, when we got together, we met at the American Dream Mall. We took pictures together, promoted your book, and you promoted mine. I just flew out to go hang out with Big Country and did some pictures and things like that with him. I went to Mick. I got to meet some people. And then when my book came out, I asked for a street team. I said, hey, guys, I need 10 of you guys that'll help me promote my books. And they all did, because I invested in those 10 or 12 different people. I had hundreds of people promoting the book because I've provided so much value. So I think if you're going to have a book or a t-shirt brand, like we got the brand new shirts for the new group, we got the hoodies, we got the Scullies. If you're going to do that, you need a street team that's going to believe in your products. Because, you know, I can say I'm the best, but when John Lee Dumas writes the whole back cover and says, I suggest you pick up this book, or if I have Travis Johnson write the beginning of the book, you know, so I think you need to have a street team of people to push it out, but then you have to figure out, is my product scalable? Is there people that want this, or is it so niche that nobody's going to buy it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, even with the Vetpreneur Tribe, I've been there since day one. A lot of people, they're like, oh, it's a blue ocean. Yeah, because there's nobody buying it. There's a reason nobody's buying it.
Yeah. I think from learning from this quick lesson, I think the street team for me, and proper marketing, and then also a rewrite in that particular regard. Because I know when I teach, it's fruitful. I just know as a book, I got to go over and restructure it. That's why my wife writes really well. It's like she goes over and she gets the flows, and she's in prayer and she gets to writing. I'm actually hopeful for her book, Sailing to Surrender. That's what I'm hopeful for. It's such a narrative to explain on how to actually live a surrendered life in Christ in that particular regard. And I think a lot of us are missing that. Just like the podcast thing. It's like there is so many books out there and you're doing really well. So you know that the market is still wanting that content, you know.
But also, we don't realize that the average person speaks and reads on a 3rd or 4th grade level.
Yeah, I am very familiar with that. And that's the sad, disappointing part. With having a background in education and training, we have gone really low. So if you write something really high in academic, you got to have that niche audience to go over and to market to. Our recruitment in the military nowadays, it used to be, and not to make any stabs at anything, but Army used to be the lowest in the ASVAB.
Yeah.
But now it's across the DoD that people are not reading. They're scrolling. They're going over and listening to a podcast. They're getting caught in either video content and everything else. And now that we have audiobooks and everything else, it's like they don't want to learn and to go over and to read. So we've even had to instruct our airmen and say, you got to read the regs. This is for your test. We had to brief them. Like we had to go to a specific MOS and say, you guys are not reading. We know you're not reading because you're literally clicking through the stuff. But then when you get to the test, you're like, I didn't know that was there. I'm like, it was there. It said, here's the reg for this. So it's been a very interesting dynamic. Has that actually pivoted your coaching or pivoted your writing or even pivoted your content, knowing that fact?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously over the last 6 months, that was part of our pivot. I'm actually working with Gunny Gonzalez and making short form video. Short form video is king. And if you're not making reels, if you're not making YouTube shorts, you're missing out. So for me, I make reels. I focus more on my reels, and then my reels point back to my long form content. So I'm not really worried about how many views I get on the long form content. I worry about more on the views that I'm getting on the short form, because it's automatically going to kick back to my long form video. So I'm not really too worried about long form video. I was so worried about how many views am I going to get on my long form video. But hey, if I get 10, 15,000 views on a short, that means I'm still affecting 10 or 15, still I'm helping, even if it's 1% of 10 or 15,000, I'm still helping a lot of people. It's just another way to think about things. Because the average attention span is like 3 minutes, if that. So you have to go with the flow. But then you get people that watch Joe Rogan to make a 5-hour episode. So if the content is good enough, people are going to stay and watch it.
And that's this actually a first pivot. So your episode is going to be the first test. So we interviewed Travis in the old forum. I'd do the question. I would go over and zoom in on you. You would answer the question. I'd bring you back. I'd probably not bring you back a little bit if you were glitching. And then I would then go to the next question. I would tie some questions, but this is the first kind of like Joe Rogan-ish episode I have done in a long time. So I guess we're even going to see if this is going to be king. But I wanted to ask a sub question with that. Are you doing this all yourself? Because I know for myself, as a podcaster, I've done radio, I've done all these types of things. The algorithm wants you to do the certain things, but are you literally doing all the short tags to the long form and all these other types of things? Or do you have a VA that goes over and does that? Like, what is your typical podcasting day look like from, like, let's say this was your episode and you were recording with me and then you went it out. What would you be doing from start to finish to actually do that? And how long does it take?
Well, I mean, it takes me a couple hours, including recording time. Mm-hmm. What I would do if I was having Daniel Faust on the show, first I would do is I would go on all his social media. I'd follow him everywhere, and I'd make sure that I'm subscribed to every single thing that he has. Then I would do our video, and then I would download our video into Opus Clip. I would get 10 shorts out of it. Then I would upload it to YouTube, and then I would put all my short tail keywords, long tail keywords. I'd make sure that my title pops, that people said something that is going to click on. I would make sure that I put 3 hashtags in the title.
Okay.
Especially if it's long form, I would make sure I put 3 hashtags in the title. And if it's short form video, I do 2 hashtags and then hashtag shorts. And then I would actually, as soon as that got released, I would push it out. We're on 35 different platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, Flickr, TikTok, blah, 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 Tumblr. And then I would tag I would tag you in every place you're available. I would tag you in. And then after I do that, I send you an email that says, thank you for promising to share this episode on all your platforms, including your email list. Here are the links to share. Thank you so much. So not only am I sharing it, you're sharing it also. This way we're getting double exposure.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I put out 1 episode a week, but I'm putting out 5 shorts of that episode Monday through Friday.
Yeah, we do different. So when this episode goes over and airs, I'll go over and take the 10 reels and post it within a 48-hour period. So I'm going to take some of the stuff that you talked about and definitely go leverage that in that regard. And one of the things I found out too is on these automated schedulers, they want to avoid certain things. So TikTok can do 5 reels a day. Instagram is up to 100. Facebook wants to put it on your business page. It won't put it on your personal page. And then LinkedIn is fine. And I'm trying to remember my other platforms. Everyone? LinkedIn, Instagram. Oh yeah, YouTube. YouTube is fine. It'll post to YouTube. That doesn't have a limit. But I've come to find out it's just like I'm running into TikTok and then my Facebook personal wall, because my Facebook personal wall is actually stronger than my Facebook page. And so I'm having to auto post. I mean, I have to manually post those things. So I'm just doing, so your episode will go live Wednesday. And so I'll do 5 reels on Wednesday and 5 reels on Thursday.
And then, a lot of people don't know that Facebook has something in your dashboard. It will tell you exactly what they want you to do so they can push your episodes out even more. They tell you to make exactly how many reels you need to make, how many posts you need to make, how many people you need to get followers. They tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get more reach. And as soon as you do what they tell you to do, they automatically give you more reach. And it's all in your dashboard. It's called the challenges.
Oh yeah, those weekly challenges. Yeah.
As long as you're doing the challenges, they're going to push your episode out to even 5, 10, 20% more people because you're completing challenges. And it's free.
Yeah, that is true. That's how I became a professional, and I am getting paid. I'm not making much, but I made 15 cents today on a post. I was not expecting that. And I guess the ads on Stars and then the reels, because I guess you can earn up to $30,000 a month, like when they first started that monetization program. I was so excited for that. And that was when I was doing the collaboration books. So I'd like to pick your brain a little bit as all this business stuff. I got maybe a couple more questions and everything else and whatnot. So I want you to basically tear my process apart, and this will probably help everybody else. So if you had to do a collaboration book, what would you have done different to make that successful? Because your book is successful, your podcast is successful, your social media is successful. If you had to do a collaboration book with, say, 10, 12 people on whatever topic it is, how would you go and make it successful? I knew I failed, and I'm still learning lessons from it. I just want to pick your brain a little bit because you've been doing this more intently and more often, like on different entrepreneurial things.
Well, first of all, I'd make sure that the people that are in the book are hungry to be in the book and hungry to promote it. If you're just going to be in a book and you're not going to promote it, then there's no sense of you being in the book. If I'm going to be doing all the legwork, I can write the book. I don't need your help. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most important thing, because if you have 12 people that are in a collaboration book and they're all pushing it out, there's no way it can't become a bestseller.
Yeah.
But if you got 4 people that are just wrote the book because they want to be in a book, but they're not going to promote it, then you're not going to get much reach at all. So you got to make sure that the 12 people want to be in it, but are also hungry enough to promote it to get it to bestseller status.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I would promote the heck out of it, because it doesn't take much to get the bestseller status on Amazon. It doesn't take much. Mm-hmm. And I'd make sure that each person that was in the book, I'd make sure they each bought a copy personally. Mm-hmm. And also make sure all 12 of them are leaving reviews for the book.
Yeah.
Because this way you're getting automatic 12, even if they're not all 5 stars, at least you're getting 12 real reviews from real people about the other person's, not their own subject, but the other person's. So you're starting off already getting pushed out, but you're also starting off with 12 5-star reviews. It's automatically going to push you to almost automatically push you to bestseller status.
Yeah, those are all things that failed me miserably. So I wish I would have saw that in the get-go, because I just kept trying to push the momentum, and I was kind of by myself in the momentum. So I know I'm waiting a couple years until I do that again. I'll make sure and I think the other lesson I learned too is, I think for me, I will never charge for it again because I did a royalty thing with them. Like I charged them X amount of dollars and then I promised them royalty based on the sales and everything else. And I keep it if it does. I mean, I keep my promise. But in that particular regard, and I was hopeful. I even did pre-marketing because I did real well in my first book. Like my books, I did a pre-marketing campaign. I got enough money to at least publish my book. I did pre-sales. I went over and said, hey, if you want to buy an autographed copy with this, and this, t-shirt, whatever it is, they pay X amount of dollars. They put a PayPal link, and then they go over and pay, and then you go live when the books come in, and then you're signing them or the t-shirts or whatever it is. So they get excited. You tag them on there on the live and all these types of things. So my first books did great in that particular regard, but I couldn't get there. So you're definitely number one, the poor, hungry, driven concept of what Damon John talks about, having your PhD. Yeah, I believe I didn't have poor, hungry, driven community in that particular regard. So I basically, next time if I'm going to do it, I'm going to find those PhD people and have that, if they contribute and everything else, I'm going to have to do a different structure because it I've been blessed that I didn't get destroyed, but I thought I was going to get destroyed like PR wise, but I've had God's grace to do that. So I'm still working through the back end of that stuff and getting things finalized so I can get out of the past. But yeah, definitely those two things. If you are listening and if you ever do those types of things, learn from my lessons and basically take what Richard, the first say a couple of things and make sure those 3 check boxes are key. I mean, because I was like, man, you just nailed it right on the head. I'm like, if I would just had those 3 things, I'm like, it would have been a totally different life.
I mean, and when we were talking and I told you I'm charging $30 for an autographed copy, you told me, wait a minute, you're crazy. It's never going to work. And then I sold out the first run sold out automatically because I had a dream team behind me. And then I also offered people that did buy the book, I offered them to come on the show for free. So they got a $997 value for $30. So
no, and that was ingenious. Like I said, I'm not right on everything. I get that. And that was humble pie to go over and to do that. So I shall be taking that lesson in the future to go over and to use that. So that's huge.
Yeah, and but without you, like I tell you, and your name is in the book. Without you, I would not have the Vertical Momentum podcast. I wouldn't have the swag. So without you, I wouldn't even have what I have. Without Travis Johnson, I wouldn't have what I have. So I'm just truly humbled and grateful for your friendship and for all the help you've given me over the years.
No, and I'm thankful for you and also God to go over and give those names and to give that help. It was a blessing. I think out of all the books I've done, it was the most fruitful in the sense of help. It's not just the fruitfulness of you being prosperous in that regard, but fruitful in seeing. And that's our heart. We want to see that transformation. We don't want to just to go sell a book or sell a product or sell a service. I remember a time I could have liquidated this woman dry. This was when I was active duty. I'm a certified behavioral consultant, so I can teach on the personality stuff. I'm like, I know it forwards and backwards and everything else. I still study every day. But I met her on deployment, and then she was going through a divorce. And that's one thing I regret. I wish she didn't went through the divorce because that's where my heart. I want marriages to be reconciled. But she wanted to at least get to know her kids and everything else and whatnot. And she would buy the products and buy the services, but she wouldn't do the emotional, transactional homework to work through that stuff. She wanted me to basically, I guess in a sense, like the reels, I'd rather just scroll through this, and they were paying me sessions. And I after about 3 or 4, I'm like, I said, I know I could liquidate you dry. I said it straight up. I guess being autistic, I just speak what I say. I'm like, I could liquidate you dry, but I want you to have transformation until you do the homework, the relational, the emotional, the transactional homework. So when we're going to these consultations, you're making relational, transformational change. I can't have you as a client anymore. Yeah. And that's when I was getting out the first time. I could have used a couple $1,000s getting out of the service. especially then moving to Arkansas and everything else. So I think your story, all the ones I've done, and I have crazier stories that I've helped people publish. One guy, I thought I was going to get in trouble with the POTUS, but we'll share that in another podcast another time. But it was one of those things. I'm like, this has been the most fruitful one, that you get to see not just your life change, see the fruit of everything.
But also, I'm like you. Like, I teach people. I have podcast course. I teach people how to start their own podcast, and I charge upwards of 4 figures. Mm-hmm. But I tell the people, if you're going to work with me, you got to do the work. I can tell you what to do, show you how to do it. But if you're not putting in the work, then you're not going to be successful. And I can't work with you if you're not going to put in the work and be successful, because I look at my success when you're successful. Mm-hmm. If you're not putting in the work to be successful, if you're not doing what I tell you to do or advising you to do, then we don't need to work together, because first of all, you're wasting money, but then you're wasting your time and you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a good coach and a bad coach.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd rather be a dollaraire and everybody thriving than me to be a billionaire and then I'm dying. Why am I going to sell my soul for the world's income? Because after so much like income, it's like, I remember I had a job that was up to $250,000. At least that was the salary of the promise, did the work and everything else. And then that person treated my executive assistant like trash. So I challenged the boss, which was my boss, and they were mother-daughter. And she basically told me, she's like, I wouldn't have done this because this is a mother-daughter conversation. I said, no, it's not anymore. It's not a mother-daughter conversation. You're treating my executive assistant that way. And she told me, she's like, I don't like your attitude. I don't like how you challenge this. She's like, what if it was your daughter? I said, you need to hold me more accountable because I call myself a Christian. If I treated my daughter that way, you need to call me on there. She's like, I don't think you're a good fit anymore. In a couple hours prior, I had the debit card that had 6 figures on there. I only pulled out the cash that she needed and gave it back to her. And that was the first time I actually saw the funds. I'm like, I thought it was fictitious at first, but it was legit. There was 6 figures of funds on the card. And I then walked out the door. So I walked out of a $250,000 job. And it's not to brag or to boast. It's just one of those things that I think we as coaches have to have that heart of, you as the person is worth more than the dollar figure.
And I tell my clients, if I'm more worried about your success than you're worried about your success, then we don't need to work together.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
I think that's huge. I think this was an amazing interview, and I think we could just close it out on that and give you the floor one more time and say, like, and this is a quick question, and then I'll give you the floor, and this is when I'm going to pan into you, is that we've talked about a lot of amazing things that we learned about life and in your transformation and everything else and things that you're doing in coaching and whatnot. If you had a person only for like 90 seconds, either at Mick or on the phone, or maybe you're doing a quick reel, what would you give them as 3 superhero tactics so they can just go from that survival mindset to that thriving?
First would be humble. I try to be as humble as I can, even though I have a lot of accolades, and we're both going to be in a movie coming up. We'll talk about that. But be humble. Second, be teachable. Make sure that you're listening. Make sure you're listening and you're learning. You're never too old to learn. And then the third thing is be prepared to work your face off. Be prepared to put in the work, because in order to be successful, you have to put in the work. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
I think that's awesome. So, Richard, I want to thank you for going over and joining on the show, new experiment type interview and everything else. Hopefully it served you well and everything else. Do you have any final shout outs before I go to credits?
Yes. If you guys wouldn't mind joining, I have my own social media group on Facebook. It's called Veterans Serving Veterans, where we just help veterans we help get resources for veterans. And then also, if you pick up my book, even if you pick up the audio copy, you get a free coaching session for 1 hour. Talk about whatever you need help with, and that's all. and it's all including in the $2 for the ebook. So if you guys are podcasting, want to be a podcaster, pick up the book and get a free coaching session.